Welcome to another episode of Recording the Dialogical Self, the official podcast brought to you in collaboration with the International Conference on the Dialogical Self in Thessaloniki 2026. I'm your host, Piotr Oleś, and today I have Professor Piotr Oleś with his students.
Gniewko, Toruj.
And Michalina, Marczewska.
Okay.
I would say PhD students.
PhD students, okay.
So
In
today,
psychology.
in psychology, under Piotr supervision. And so today we're multi-voiced. Real
okay.
topic.
And not only by my supervision, because your supervisor now is Małgorzata Kuchelska-Wos,
Yes.
who makes perfect research on the dialogical self.
So, let's go on with the questions. Everybody can answer. If you want to add anything, let's add whatever you want. So, let's talk about internal conflicts. Okay. In the context of psychotherapy, when a client is presented with deeply conflicted internal voices, how can a therapist effectively use the dialogical self theory to help them construct a more cohesive and functional personal narrative, a personal way of discussing about their lives?
Well, this is a perfect question for Michael Goncalves, who's present in this conference.
Yes. I had a conversation with him.
His specialization, yes, concerns psychotherapy. But when you ask us, I would say that if you follow your client, his way of thinking, of introducing problems, sometimes you can find different voices in him or her, different points of view, sometimes in conflict, sometimes not in conflict. And if you follow this way of thinking, also excluded voices, which you can imagine that they are present, but they are not expressed overtly. So our clients teach us what does it mean to be dialogical. Another aspect of dialogicality is that when I have a talk with my client and I know his or her life history, I try to understand experiences which are different from mine. I try to take the position of this another person to understand well his or her world. Of course, can also use dialogicality in psychotherapy. Maybe you are closer of some experiences.
Any thoughts?
Well, I would have to agree with what Piotr said, so that with my practice, with my clients, I had this experience of them expressing thoughts from different kinds of views. And I think that dialogical self theory provided this language that helped them even validate those voices and help them express them more clearly.
Well, you make me to think about this kind of experiences from my psychological practice when people suffer from something they have heard from their parents, for example. And it was very painful, sometimes extremely painful for them, and they cannot overword such experience.
They get stuck in...
Yes, and my role as a psychotherapist, as a psychologist, is to go through such very difficult, very painful experiences towards with my clients and help him or her understand, on the one hand, background of such difficult experience, background in themselves and in the situation. On the other hand, to accept suffer and to make from suffer something good. We call it, for the long distance, we call it post-traumatic growth.
Yeah, and again, building on what Piotr said, for me it was when a client had a really dominating I position. So for example, she is a mother. When we approached it from a dialogical self perspective, she was able to put herself as a mother. She could embody it and then put it aside and focus on other things, on other parts of her which were neglected because of her very dominating I position as a mother.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So can some apparently contradictory positions both be authentic expressions of the same person?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that the most common conflict is conflict between good me and bad, or between me as optimist or me as pessimist, concerning, for example, life goals and their realization. Both sides are necessary because when I'm only optimist, I have sometimes not enough motivation to behave in such a way to avoid experiences which could make difficult to realize my goals. So this pessimistic voice sometimes warn on something which is very important to notice and to avoid it. On the other hand, of course, if you are only pessimist, you have really bad situation. However, my father was a pessimist, and he had very good professional career. He had a lot in his mind. He had a lot of possible mistakes and failures, and then he realized his goals very well.
Oh, okay. Did you change him?
No. I attended him only in this way that he was professor of physics and professor of psychology.
Okay. So it got to be better and better.
Yes. But well, it's not a question to be better than your father, because it goes to Freudian conflict, our personality, kill father. It's just to learn something which is important in life. For example, to realize goals, even having not only good expectations about possible results, because of the value of these goals, and not only about thinking about successes.
But we live in a world that is success-oriented. You have to be successful skillfully, you have to be successful money-wise, you have to be successful in everything in order to value in society.
Well, I'm on the stage of life when I reflect my successes from this point to the past. But you are in such a stage of life in which you can think about successes which are just before you, just before or in a longer distance. So probably you better say something about that.
What is success for you?
Okay, so I think this conversation brought up a lot of thoughts. So first of all, I think what Piotr was saying about, containing this pessimist you or skeptic you. So as a young person, like Piotr said, at the verge of success. So I have a lot of doubts, and I think, dialogical self theory, again, maybe helps to, express the doubts and then put them aside and, focus more on what's at hand. But yeah, for what's, going back to your question of what's success, that's really complicated for a young person. And I think both of me and Michalina, kind of wake up every day and try to define it in a new way, because money-wise, you can have all of it, and there is so many experiences, so many voices which try to tell you what's more important. So I guess that's the uncertainty part of life, which dialogical self theory mentions so well. And on the other hand, I really also felt today's keynote in here, because when the presenter was saying about wobbling, right? So we have those wobbles which can be a big thing, and I think life as a young person is full of wobbles and choosing your direction.
Yeah, I'm totally agree with you because when you ask us what is the success, I have a thought that it's a really rough question because I have so many voices in my head what I want from my life. So I don't know. I can't decide. So I think I could be success in every of this life path, but I'm not sure which I choose. So it's my dilemma.
Yeah, and I think our goal would be very similar. So, to help our community, to build community. But there are so many roles you can be in this community and help it. So you can be a provider, maybe financial success. You can be a supporter. You can be a builder. There's a whole lot of, and I think success is ultimately, about building a community, but there are many ways to it.
What about you?
Well, I would like to give such a comment that we can have many voices in our head, but people sometimes are not aware of that. When Małgorzata asked people about the internal dialogues, about 1/4 of the participants said, no, it's not my cup of tea. No, I have nothing like that. But after 2 weeks, all of them found the trait of dialectical thinking that they conduct internal dialogues with imagined figures and real figures. They prepare themselves for important conversations, for example. They pose questions to themselves and answer these questions. When I prepared myself for habilitation colloquium, we have habilitation after doctorate in Poland, and colloquium means discussion with the candidate professor. I posed many questions from the position of Professor X, Professor Y, Professor Z, and I answered all these questions. Some of them were more difficult than they posed during the colloquium.
I wondered if I can ask a question to Piotr. So we mentioned what's success to us, looking from this before period, before full of uncertainty. So how would you define success, or what advice could you give on success from your eye position?
It's a question for a wise man, right? Yeah, sure.
That's why we ask.
As far as I observe many careers in psychology, I think that there are 2 or 3 necessary elements. The first one is talent. You should be really talented. The second one is motivation. You should be motivated to work hard, and to develop your skills, to be better and better. And the third is, I would say, social presence. You should have something like we do at the conference. Present your work in the best possible way to convince people. If you have all 3, maybe fourth. Fourth one is resistance for failures, because when you send the article to the journal, sometimes your article is rejected just at the beginning or after reviews, and you should change everything which is possible to change, and to submit the article to a second journal or the third, or sometimes these trials go to the 10th. Even also. I remember one of my first experiences. We've prepared an article with Hubert Hevlers, who is the head of this conference, and we've got a very negative review. I was impressed. I thought, well, our article is fantastic. At Huber's, so to me, Piotr, we've got extremely intelligent critic of our article, critic from the position of trade psychology. But we work on the field of phenomenological psychology. Let's try to first improve our text, and second, to answer to the viewer. And it was great. And I tried to do that from the beginning of my career. It was in the 83 or something like that, this experience, up till now.
So again, a dialogical process shines through.
Yeah, even you have to be resilient in looking over and over your theories, looking over and over your work, and make it better and proving yourself resilient over this.
Yes, I would add that when we think about successes in, I would say, academic career, we should also look for good publications, good articles, and good books. There are so many articles and books that it's impossible to read everything, even if we work on the rather broad field, like, for example, social influence, let we say, or dialogicality. It's impossible to read everything. And the question is how to make choice very economically, in a fast way, to know very fast, well, this article is interesting, I will read it. This one, not special. It's not so special as hobby. There are some people who can find articles sometimes by accident, and they are lucky in that. And some people who try to read many things, and if you have more and more and more knowledge, it's more and more difficult to write something.
Yeah. You're trying to do something authentic, something different from the others. Yeah. How do you know that you have written something important? If you write an article, how do you know this is a special article, or you don't know?
Well, where it seems to be new, or it seems to be as the next step or next point in this piece of knowledge, which you have an impression it's worth for publication. When it's something which repeats other results which are known from ages, or if it's only one small result, such impression is rather there. However, there is also one thing necessary here, because sometimes we have many ideas how to interpret the data. And some ideas are, for example, very close to the field. I would say man-learned. But we have also alternative interpretations, like path, which are... And to find one or two of them, which are really creative, is a great experience. And sometimes you can convince in such a way publisher.
That you have done something
brilliant and not a very obvious explanation of the result.
Any other thoughts? Sorry? Any other thoughts on that?
Well, very enough.
Okay. What about like on the dialogical self? We have like too much ambivalence in people right now. We have like people thinking both things. If you have ambivalence between good or bad, okay, it might be resolved in therapy. But if you have ambivalence among many things, many voices, we live in a fast-paced world, too many voices, AI, everything around us, the internet. We have too many voices. How can we help people like choose one voice or many, the voices that can help them and not be like overwhelmed by all these the voices from the society, the internet, the digital
we
world?
Have faced such reality, well, not very long time ago. It's quite new phenomenon that we have so many voices and more voices. So probably it's a question for the research, for psychologists, for sociologists and anthropologists and other professions, how to deal with such a multiplicity of voices. And how to pick up something from all of them, something which is very important, for example, for my life or for my career or for my relationships and so on. And I think that there is no one or clear answer for that. I don't know how it is perceived from the position of the young generation. They will probably tell something about that. From my point of view, I'm on the one hand happy that I'm so old that I don't need to choose the way of my life, to formulate my beliefs concerning reality and so on, and that my relationships are over. So I don't need to think to be father or not, to be single, to marry, something like that. So it's a kind of comfort of being aged. However, on the other hand, sometimes I asked, like you pose this question to me, because people wanted people expect that psychologists who are experienced can tell to them something which they can use in their life. And it's extremely difficult to do that not knowing your life history. If you would tell your history, or if you would introduce voices in your head, I would work on that. On your history, on your voices, on your dialogical, and to find adaptive ways of conducting dialogues or formulating your attitudes toward this diversity, extreme diversity of the world, or knowing your life history. I would work with you concerning your good and bad experiences and knowledge which you can have from bad and good experiences from your life. But in the general, it's impossible because there are too many variables to give prescription for a happy or good life.
Nowadays, people ask for prescriptions. 10 things to do when you feel sad. 5 things to do to get over your ex. we ask for prescriptions nowadays.
Well, but all general advices are, good for some people, not for everybody. And that's what I mean, that when I know about a person, I can give advice, or can work with her or him concerning adaptive functioning if this is extremely high uncertainty in our world, social work especially. But not knowing important thing about the person, I don't want to give any advices.
One last question, I will leave you. What do you think make people resilient over trauma, over difficult times, over war, over crisis? If you can pinpoint things or elements that can make people more resilient to difficulties in life.
I would say that the most important point is to face difficult situations.
Exposure, you mean?
Yeah. I think that one of the greatest mistakes in our families is that parents try to make work for their children comfortable.
And protective.
Yeah, and they're too protective for the children. It should be two things: love on the one hand, and on the second hand, a exposure to stress and to difficult life situations, and maybe also a kind of trust that he or she, even being child, will manage that. When us, as a parent or grandparents now, have such belief that small child will manage the stress, he or she will. Exactly will. If I'm full of doubts, I make him or her more anxious.
Yes.
Yeah, I think answering your question about what helps with difficult situations, I think I would have to go back to your previous question and even what Piotr said. So I think it's really sort of being a young person with all the multiplicity of voices is also a very tough job. And like Piotr said, there isn't one general answer. So I guess the easy answer would be to, you have to look in yourself and, have this authenticity about you. But as dialogical self theory says, the self is not really a monolith, it's much more complicated. So, but with that insight, I think we still can look inside of ourselves for answers, especially with strong support systems, right? So, either good friends, therapists, community, especially as even those things, especially community, are being kind of disintegrated. And I think that's even something that can be found in what Piotr said. So the child, has this support system, the family who believes in them, and they can, they have this something, they can venture into themselves to find the love of others, right? So I think that's very beautiful. And yeah, and I think the strong support system is very important, especially for being authentic to yourself, as paradoxical as it might sound.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here, all of you, and sharing all these thoughts.
Yeah, thank you for
Hope
having
you
us.
enjoyed the conference. I hope to see you again another time.
Thank you so much for inviting us, and yeah, let's enjoy the conference.
Okay, thank you too.